Very good morning to each one of you. On behalf of the Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce, we welcome each one of you to this special talk on challenges, opportunities, and way forward post COVID-19. Before we could start this session, let's have a state patriotic song played. Purushottam, can we have it played? Thank you all for the salutation of the state patriotic song. Before we could start, we request the all the BCC members and the members of the industry to follow adequate precaution and strict adhere to the COVID-19 protocol. BCIC would like to offer a tribute to all those who have lost their lives to COVID-19 and pray for their souls rest in peace. And also BCIC expresses gratitude to all the frontline COVID-19 warriors for their invaluable service that they have rendered. A minute of silence from each one of you. Thank you all for your kind cooperation. Let's begin the session. This session has been organized under the BCIC Leadership Forum. We'd like to specially thank our President Mr. T.R. Parshram, who is also the President Whole-Time Director of Toyota Industries Engines, for curating this session for the benefit of our members. Today's session will be addressed by Mr. L. Krishnan, Managing Director of Tegutech India. On behalf of the Chamber and the office bearers of BCIC, we express our sincere thanks to Mr. L. Krishnan for accepting our invitation to address on this important subject. We'd also like to thank all the participants for joining in today's session. We request all the participants to kindly mute your mic and webcam option to enhance and keep the bandwidth strong as well as avoid any disturbance in the background. Please post your questions on the chat box and the speaker will respond to you as and when the session progresses. Or you could raise your hand. We will be able to take up this question. We would like to compliment, the chamber would like to compliment the office bearers and the leaders of all the expert committees who are bought, and this is the 190th session being under the leadership of Mr. T.R. Parshuram. May I now invite our President, Mr. T.R. Parshuram, to welcome the gathering and take forward. Thanking you all once again. President, over to you, sir.
Yeah, very good morning to all. Thank you, Prithvi. I extend a very hearty welcome to all my friends, ladies and gentlemen, for a very important session. The COVID challenges so far and the way forward and the opportunities ahead of us. So we could not have got a better person than Sri Krishnan, who has a wealth of experience in the corporates, in the industrial bodies, and in the public life. Mr. Krishnan, all of us know that he doesn't need any introduction. He is the managing director of Tegutech India Limited, a very leading tooling manufacturing, a multinational company, and also the immediate past president of Indian Machine Tool Manufacturers Association. And before that, he has held several positions as the past president of CII Karnataka. And he had a very rich corporate life spanning more than 35, 40 years. I think he worked in leading organizations like Kenametal. Before that, he was with LG and several other corporates. And he has been a great leader. I think I had the privilege of working with him very closely at CII, and always used to inspire us with his thought leadership. And in fact, he had worked in companies like Ashok Leyland, the automobile companies. So I think he has brought a rich experience with him. And whenever I talk to him, it's always an inspiration and a very positive leader. In fact, BCIC's leadership program is not complete without such people. But last year, we had the pleasure of inviting him before COVID. And this year, I was only wondering the right time to invite. Unfortunately, the previous meeting which happened, he had to participate in the Prime Minister's address of CII. So we said that somehow we should have his program. And that's how we are all here today. Anyway, this program will also be put in our website for the benefit of members. Because many members have called me and said that they are not in a position to participate, but they would like to see this program in the website. I said that definitely most welcome. This information is available in our website, and members can access this information, this video. So today, the challenging times of COVID, in fact, it has never happened in the history, and nobody is certain what is going to happen tomorrow. I think that kind of shake it has created. And for us, it's the first time in our history, in our lives, even we have not seen it in the last 100 plus years. Therefore, what we should do, what corporates should do, what individuals should do, and what kind of strategy would work for us. Having said that, the kind of learnings that COVID brought us is phenomenal. In fact, from my own company, I can say that Toyota, we have been able to save a lot of billions of dollars in travel. Every month we used to have meetings in our Bangkok office or in our Japan office or in some other affiliate. But today it's a ninth wonder of the world. 2 years plus we have not traveled abroad, which is possible. Similarly, in manufacturing companies, when I talk to my people to work from home a couple of years back, people used to laugh. Today it has become a real reality. And this learnings is going to be perpetual, which means we can retain it forever. And the kind of advantages the corporates are gained, be it the IT sector, be it the hospitality sector, or be it the manufacturing sector, I think the learnings are innumerable. And today the human development also has taken a new shape, because world is seamless, there is no barriers, and you can have your meetings in any part of the world. And these kind of challenges are also creating new paradigms, new opportunities. At the same time, new sets of challenges are also coming, be it in the human resources, recruitment drives, how to keep motivation of people, how do you retain the talents, and how do you really connect with them physically on a physical platform. At the same time, virtual platforms are also increasing. Today, the artificial intelligence, machine learning, VR technologies are literally governing the world, and they are forming a new set of manufacturing paradigms. Therefore, I would say that the world has become more dynamic than ever. And I think sky is not the limit. So with that note, I would invite my good friend, Mr. Krishnan, for sharing his valuable thoughts and addressing the leadership forum of Bangalore Chambers. Thank you all, and have a wonderful session. Over to you, Mr. Krishnan. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Parashuraman and leadership of BCIC for inviting me. I'm really privileged. And Mr. Parashuraman, thank you for your kind words. I'm not very sure about whether the content what I'm sharing is the most is applicable to every one of you, but nonetheless, the content what I'm sharing is broadly born out of our own experiences of last, let us say, about I would say about 16, 17 months, our experiences and our learning. And I would probably make this using a PowerPoint presentation. And then after that, we are always open for a discussion and chat if I can clarify any of the issues. Thank you very much. Let me just share my presentation. Are you able to see the presentation on the screen?
It's a perfect status.
It's visible, right?
Visible.
Good. So let me just move on to now the presentation. So we all for probably last 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years we've been hearing about the VUCA. VUCA was initially we all understood, but we never understood the depth of VUCA. We understood the word. We understood what it means, but we never understood because we never had an experience of what is really VUCA. This COVID exposed all our weaknesses and then brought us to the middle of this VUCA world. From VUCA world, people said that now when the pandemic started, that maybe this is not just VUCA, this is going to be the new normal. We will have uncertainty, we will have a problem. It is not a one-time happening. There is an event called VUCA, but it is probably the way this is going to be the new normal. But then from new normal, we are probably now saying that, is it just new normal or is it going to be never normal? Looking at our own experience of, let us say, disruptive experience of last 16, 17 months, new normal, never normal at different levels are certainly applicable to many of our businesses. Let me just give you a little bit of an overview of what really happened within our own organization, or broadly the business of, let us say, cutting tools. From 100, sometime in 2018, we came down. When I say that VUCA, when I say uncertainty, when I say new normal, when I say never normal, When 100 becomes 20, I'm talking about a quarterly business. If indexed, if it is 100 and then it became 20, there are not no ready-made management theory available really applies to the situation you are undergoing. It's something you can't even explain. And this 100 to 20 happened in small doses. And then suddenly there was one period of, let us say, moving from March 2020 to April to June quarter, it really dropped down to 20. Most of us actually do not know, although we may have 30, 40 years of corporate experiences, we do not know how to run an organization and pay salary, pay bill when your revenue is zero, because this is a theoretical, so far it has only been a theoretical possibility. We never thought that this possibility can happen, but we first experienced such a possibility. And then the ramping back when when business started coming back, again in about 3 quarters it went back to 100. We started looking at everything normal. Then again it dropped by another 20%. So it is just, I don't know whether it is a new normal or a never normal. One of these descriptions should certainly work for this. Let me just go through the journey and then we'll come back to some of the learnings, what observations which I have. So what really happened in March, let us say that around the March, we just heard about newspaper reporting a new virus coming in, something happening. And when really initial stages of this will not happen to India, we are a tropical country, we have high temperature, the virus cannot withstand, it won't be as contagious of what you see in rest of the world in colder weathers. There were several denials which was really happening. When the reality dawned in April, let us say April, May, during the time, we were completely clueless. We were always worried about employees' safety as long as they are inside the factory, they were in the work premises. Some of the good companies like us, we were always concerned about, we had a very high level of focus on employee safety. But we never understood in this situation, employee safety is not restricted to what you do at factory. It is encompassing how you bring them to factory, how you drop them home, and then what do they do at home? How is their family welfare? I mean, the entire safety and health paradigm of employee was 360-degree dimension. It was no longer a dimension which was to take care of safety at work when employees were there. Nobody knew what do you do when you don't have a revenue at all. I mean, look, you don't really invest 200, 300 crore in a company and build a factory and employ people. And then there is suddenly a quarter where virtually you have no revenue at all. And your bills continue to, you need to pay your taxes, you need to pay your employee salary, you need to pay your statutory payments, etc. But zero revenue is zero revenue. This was, the first thing was, instinct was, let's gear up ourselves. We need cash for survival, but we don't know for how long. Compliance was very important for us. And during all these things, we had to also have the big challenge for all of us. I'm sure it is applicable for your organization too. How do we ensure that our people are engaged? Not that we going to have after the pandemic a set of employees who are completely disconnected with company and business. So it was important for us to ensure that our people are connected with company, our people were connected with our business, our people were connected with customers in some way or other. It may not be in a perfect fashion you earlier had, probably in a fashion in which is probably within the framework of digital connectivity, what was the best possible to ensure that employees are kept engaged and the spirit of organization alive. This was extremely critical for us. Going forward from here, the month of May was that some small skeleton work could happen at factory. Our biggest problem was when suddenly, without any preparation, you shut down all the equipment. When you get back to work, your first concern is how do I ensure that our equipments, whatever we have in the factory, are all running, all the devices are functioning. This was our first major concern. Luckily, the protocols of operations of equipments were all taken care, so we could. Next important is social distancing, COVID protocol, COVID behavior. Earlier, you built an organization and spaces for people to meet, people to interact, people to socialize. This was the spirit of the organization. You wanted a coffee place, breakout areas in factory to be nice, where people can get together and talk to each other, they can meet and discuss. This is how you build a factory. Suddenly you are going to completely need to undo this and say that, look, don't stay together, don't talk too close to each other. Do not, in a dining table, if normally 4 people sit, we say that only one of you should sit. So this was not an easy thing to do because it is a cultural change from what you have been doing for so many years. You ask people to do exactly opposite of what you want them to do earlier. Okay, so slowly factory is limping back to the normalcy in the month of June. And even at the time, our sales activities, the people going to visiting customers were just starting to warm up themselves. Still, many local regions had a restriction of movement, restriction of visit to factory premises. So we were just starting to prime, and with some precaution, we just wanting to get things started and start visualizing the next step. July, August, we started accelerating our journey towards normalcy. And then slowly, very, very quickly, probably even faster than what we anticipated, more or less normalcy occurred. September onwards, I would say October, November, December, October till March was the resumption of activity was very quick, very fast. In fact, in several areas, we couldn't really catch up. That was the speed at which the recovery happened. Slowly, we had tightened our belt. We said that we must start investing. We should start looking at future and start increasing our spend to take care of future needs. So April, as I said, that from October to March was fantastic. April was also very good month. And then looking at buoyancy, looking at everything happening much faster than our own anticipation. Next important thing was to take care of employees. We said that, look, we've not looked at the employee compensation for 2 years. It's time that we need to take care of this. We need to increase it. Start hiring, because the rate at which we are really increasing our sales, we will need people to really take care of our operations. Assess the capacity need, make capital investment plan. It's all started in the month of April. Come the month of May, one more disaster. May month, again from 100 or 95 levels, another 30% drop. We built inventory, we built momentum, we did everything up to the month of March, April. May month saw a drop of 20%. Then again, we said that we need to tread very carefully with respect to the future, with respect to the spend, with respect to, in other words, that every time when we were making a spend, we were taking a decision irrespective of our past decision. We were re-evaluating the decision before we actually cut the check and then made the spend. This was again, the uncertainty came back in the month of, then we again went back to the control mode from expansion mode. Now, this is all the story that really happened. So this is broadly tells you as to what kind of journey. I don't know whether it's VUCA word is adequate, new normal is adequate, never normal is adequate. I don't know what description you can call when over a period of, let us say, about 2 years, you had a situation of seesaw going from 100 to 20, back to 100, back to 70, 80. This is really a complicated roller coaster ride all of us have undergone. Now let's come back to this story. I think in different shades of gray, all of you would have experienced in your own organization. I'm sure you have had a similar kind of experience in your own businesses. You've also undergone this roller coaster ride. Now, let me just say that what is that I, as an individual, or my own colleagues or senior management team, what did we learn from this experience of, let's say, about over 2 years? We have been doing a thing called risk management in the company. The risk management was always to take care of business risk, technology risk. Relatively, although we were calling it as a risk management, and many organizations, including Tegutech, the risk what we had was all perceivable risk. The moment you are able to perceive a risk, that first step itself mitigates the risk itself. You know that it is perceivable. You can imagine what could possibly be going wrong. We were now dealing with the new risk, which is we don't know what is the risk. So the risk management and the depth of the depth at which risk management needed to be tackled at an organization level went up by several notches, and we had to also recalibrate our own thinking, our own mind to a different levels. The risk management where what happens to sales, capacity, people. When I say risk management, I'm not talking necessarily about shortages here. I'm talking about both shortages and surpluses. Sales, capacity, people, health, safety, business continuity. Our ability to quickly, let's say, navigate company through events that were not really predicted before. Our ability to deal with every month, every week, every particular period as it merits rather than based on a plan which we had. How do we keep a long-term vision and a plan at the same time be nimble-footed and navigate through this? And never hesitate to scrap a plan which we made painstakingly some time back. Now, let me just go back to this and then a little bit elaborate. For example, before I went on to probably into the summarizing mode, we are in the business of consumable. Consumables are sold from shelf. We make a commitment to our customers based on, look, if you place an order, we'll try and deliver you the standard items within, let's say, 24 hours or 48 hours, depending upon the category of items. And we have a batch processing in the factory, and then we deal with varieties. Varieties meaning maybe about a few thousand varieties of products in smaller lots. So we have a typical batch production. So what are the constraints? You have a delivery commitment because no customer waits for cutting tool to arrive to produce, right? If you're not there, somebody else supplies, and then life goes on. Being a consumable, when a customer needs it, he needs it at the point of time. He cannot really afford to wait. Number two, you have batch production process, which means that you're quoting all the items which require certain recipe will have to be batched together and then coated together. All the items which undergo certain sintering cycles will have to be processed and done together. So different processes, whether it is a pressing, sintering, coating or grinding or any other process has its own batch formation, which means that the batch formation is a typical need of this type of organization. On top of it, because of variety and your commitment to customer on delivery, you need to be keeping inventory, which means that inventory is a necessary part of your business risk, which is very well thought of. But the inventory, what do you do? Let's say that if your inventory is, let us sales is X, you keep certain multiple of X based on your own lead time for manufacturing goods as your inventory. Now, when the sales moves from 1X to 0.2X, any inventory which you have tends to become far in excess of what you really need. And company like us, we have a very strict inventory depreciation policies. If an item doesn't move, if an item doesn't, if the stock available is far in excess, we need to depreciate, we need to show loss. This is in addition to your operational loss, you need to also book these as your losses in your books to show the depreciation of goods. Although it is very theoretical, this is a global accounting policy. You can't just crib about it. That's the way it needs to be done. Now, nobody has seen a situation that how do we navigate. So we went on experimenting. What happens in case if we control the inventory of finished products? What happened in case if we need to control the work in process? What happens? What is the impact and how do you deal with your lead time when you control your raw material? So we have not really found one optimum solution, but however, we have clearly understood that what we said yesterday may not be true for today, which means that every single day when you take a decision for inventory and manufacturing, you need to look at the current data, current reality, and then take those decisions. What you said a few days back, in fact, the credibility of management is really seriously threatened here, because we tell our people to do something a few days back, and then after a few days you go back and tell them that, look, no, I said that, but in current reality this is not really true. We need to change it, which means that this is very confusing communication to the employees. But then we need to communicate because it's a necessity. You will not be able to not to do this because you have a risk of running completely out of cash and your business continuity can be very much threatened. The other risk is, let us say that you can really replenish about 200 lines, 200 SKUs or 200 varieties of items in a month to your inventory. If you keep the inventory too low, if you need to replenish, let us say 500 lines, so 200, you can stretch, do some management, bring in some lean ideas, make it to 220, 250, 260, 270. When that goes to 500, there are no methods to do it because there's a physical limitation. There is a process lead time, there are batch formation, there are sizes. So which means that we were learning new constraint and we were learning new method to deal with them. Like I said that the nimble-footedness and then willingness to really review every decision what we made before. And several of the time, it was not only for me, for many of, I'm sure that many people across the organization, to tell to our employees or subordinates that, yes, I made this plan, this plan is no longer applicable. We would like to scrap this plan. Forget about, all of us have intellectual ego, right? We just don't want to concede in front of everybody. But the truth here is that is the reality. So we need to really go back to people and then say that, look, with our limited knowledge, the factors, environment around us have changed so much that what we said before, what we planned before, see, this is the new mentality we need to learn to be able to accept in public. I made a plan and this plan should be scrapped now. It is no longer relevant. How often we are able to say it in public in front of our subordinates is a very, very important lesson management needs to learn. As long as this becomes a very touchy, emotional aspect for management, we will never be able to communicate very, very effectively. In all these constraints, when we were managing, we realized actually, this is true at home also. During the pandemic period, probably this is the period of, I'm sure it is applicable to many of you, our household expenditure is fraction of what we were doing before in the normal. We realized suddenly that we don't need to really keep buying during every discount sale of lifestyle. We realized that we don't really need to be happy and to live a life fulfilling. We don't really need to do many expenditure which were totally redundant, not really healthy. So we realized that in a hard way. Even within the company, during the constraint, during the restarting time, all people could not come. We were operating 50%, 60%, 70% people at different times. This really showed to us that, look, we are relatively a lean company. We don't have too many people in the company. We are about little over 200 people, and we do depending upon which time you measure, we do a business of, let us say, about 350 crore, something like this. So we are reasonably lean company, I would say that. But we really realized that during the pandemic, when we were operating with constraint, that we have not really, there is still enough scope with the digital adoption of digital technologies, perfecting the meeting tools, perfecting the digital technology in communication, and different ways of decision making. We realize that, yes, there is still a huge scope for downsizing the organization. Instead of downsizing, I would probably use the right one, to increase the productivity which is latent within the organization, which means that many of the resources, not only machines, I'm talking about here people as a resource, we found that there is a huge amount of opportunity for us to really enhance better output from people. There are many functions what we bureaucratically keep doing for years together need not have to be done, because in pandemic we couldn't do it. But we realized that why did we do it before? Because without this, we seem to be doing all right. Company is running well. So we find that there were several practices which we were doing in the past because it was being done. Even if it is not done, the productivity or output of the organization, including your long-term integrities, are not really getting compromised. We have enough scope to deal with it. When we were doing well, we were so happy. We were capital investment. Let's say, anytime you want, if trigger is there, yeah, we should buy a machine, we should improve the capacity. We should buy a machine, we should improve capacity. This was a kind of a trigger we always used to have before the pre-pandemic period. The moment we come close to 80-85% of capacity utilization, we start thinking, no, it's time that we should start. Now we were posed with a new situation. What is the new situation? Even if you have cash to buy a capital investment, make a capital investment, buy an equipment, invariably comes from, let's say, Germany or Switzerland or Japan. Nobody was willing to come. No service engineer was willing to come to commission the equipment. So here from, let us say, from April last year, from up to now, equipments where the service engineers had to come from overseas and come and commission, which are the most critical equipment for our processing, have to be done this way, could not be done at all. So our entire mindset completely changed, not to think every time when you reach about 85-90% of capacity utilization, how do we now generate more capacity out of the existing investment available? Because there was no other option. It was not an option that we could buy a machine. This option is not there. Even if I have to shift a machine from my parent company, somebody to come and commission it was not possible. So we had no other, we were just pushed to corner and to see as to find latent capacity, find subcontractor, do something to generate that additional 15-20% of capacity what you need to generate, not to depend on capital investment. This capacity also, you don't need it fully. You need it in spurts. There are some quarters you seem to be doing too well. There are some quarters you're not doing too well. So if we are able to generate that extra capacity by finding some creative way, including an option of exiting some of the low end of the business which don't yield you anything in terms of contribution, as well as the very, very old technology. Continuing this technology, you are making customer liable to use this old one. Instead, if you discontinue, there is an incentive for customer to also modernize and get better productivity from your cutting tools. So we are now, currently the whole organization is thinking that, look, if I don't recruit extra person, if I don't buy an extra machine or equipment, can I generate that additional capacity what we need for immediate opportunity? We don't know for how long this opportunity will stay. So the mindset of capital investment triggered, I mean, like trigger happy, we were there. From there, we are just changing our. But some of these, what we have learned, they are not really useful only for COVID situation. I believe this has enabled organizations across the country. Here, just one. I'm sure that many of you have discovered many things more in your own organization and business as to how to creatively navigate through unprecedented crisis, which we don't even know the depth of the crisis. We have successfully navigated. I'm very sure that you've all learned many lessons, and I'm very sure that if some way organizations like BCIC can just create some of the learnings of how individual members have organized themselves to navigate through this crisis, it would be a great lesson for us to remember for future. But normally, our behavior is like elastic, right? Once we start seeing our revenue coming in, sales going up, again, we tend to go back to our old behavior 100%. The challenge for leadership is to see whatever prudence and whatever lessons what we learned now, how do we preserve it? How do we build it into the organization? How do we make it into a new culture in the organization, and not to spring back to old methods very, very soon and quickly? This is what I would say as my, let's say, what we learned in our organization, how we managed ourselves. And I'm very, very open to hear from all of you, your comments, your remarks. And if I can add anything more, it'll be my pleasure to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I think for a wonderful insight. You have been very, very practical, and you have been so transparent. And I think your message has been very clear. I think to start from the scratch, that open mind for leaders, that we have made a mistake. I think this has been a very great learning point for all of us. And every day is an uncertain day. And that open mind and flexibility to adapt quickly to the business scenarios. So, sir, let us hear some of the questions from the audience. I'm just opening the chat box now. Sir, first questions are actually okay. I think this is, sir, what kind of challenges you foresee in the next 1 to 2 years as far as manufacturing is concerned? And what kind of scenarios are likely to emerge given the wave 3 threat? But you think that wave 3 would be more simpler to manage given the kind of preparation and vaccination drive the country has taken?
Well, very little. The COVID itself, in my opinion, is a relatively new emerging story across the world. It's not only applicable to us in India, it is also applicable to rest of the world, including developing countries. And I know for sure, I can share the experience in Israel. Israel has one of the largest vaccinated community. About a month ago, they went back to no mask situation. They said there is not mask is not necessary for people to move out. About a month back, they have rolled back everything, and they've now started doing third shot booster for their own vulnerable people in Israel. So I would still say that whatever we read in newspaper, whatever so-called expert advises, what we are reading, speculations, let's say extrapolation of past experience to future, what people are doing. We have to believe all of them, and we have to not to believe all of them, because there is no method to validate any one of them. But one thing is very clear for businesses is that everything is a possibility. Are you really geared up? Do you have a plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E, plan F to navigate through in the event of such things happening? So I would believe that I'm hoping, like you, I'm hoping that third wave may not be as severe. It's just a hope. There is no evidence available to say that this is right or wrong. Probably governments have learned, probably medical fraternity has learned from the experience. Maybe we should be able to sail through is the hope, but I can't for sure say if we undergo one more difficult cycle, we should all be prepared to undergo that. That's on the COVID side.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Sir, one question from our past president, Mr. Devesh Agarwal. How should industry chambers engage with government and the advisory panels to mitigate the shocks to industry?
Yeah, so first of all, we need to like what we do well, and what all the industry bodies are doing well. We should all the time have, first of all, the problem of our membership as we see. Many times it's in, I've been part of the some of the industry bodies. So normally the louder one voices are only becomes the opinion in the association. I'm not very sure whether the associations have a method to really ensure that the real the cross section of membership and their difficulties are all well understood to be able to articulate the problem to government. We need to ensure that we are representing all the membership, not necessarily the louder voices. That is the responsibility of all the association. Because many a time, the quieter ones who don't have a very loud voice probably are struggling the most in a given a community, whether it is a social structure or a business structure. So we need to ensure that their voices are articulated to government. The second important thing is we must also realize that government has a limited kitty available. They will have, and at the end of the day, every government has the election in mind. They will have to really balance the need. That we need to probably put forward all our problems from a perspective of how it is impacting the social, the larger public. So that is the important way of communication with government has to change. Not to only say that I have cash flow, I have a problem in paying this. Instead of that, we need to probably articulate, in case if we don't get over this, there are directly so many families are getting affected. Directly, indirectly, so many families are getting affected. This would impact the social fabric of the probably then the prioritization of spend towards our need would possibly happen, given the constraint on finances with both state and central government.
Thank you, sir. One more question coming from the chat box again is how would you upgrade your products? So, for example, when upgrading your product, how did you mitigate the risk you faced of your customers moving to a competitor, given their price performance expectations?
Yes. So this is a very, very important aspect of it. See, for example, there are two. For example, let me just say I have a capacity of X. I decide that I want to generate 20% capacity, which means that I am now constrained to stop producing 20% of the product which were at the lower end of my value addition and in terms of technology, very, very older legacy products. While I upgrade this, make an attempt to upgrade this in the marketplace, I would all the time recommend people to assume there is a certain amount of attrition going to happen in this. Assuming that this 20% I'm going to exit or upgrade will get replaced by another 20% of my own product with the higher technology is actually far-fetched. It doesn't happen. So we must factor certain amount of attrition that will happen in the process. Now, only thing we need to see is if your newer technology is, let us say, about able to garner 10-15% additional realization as compared to older technology, and if your attrition is restricted to the 10-15%, then you are not losing anything. That is a worst scenario for which I would say that we need to plan our businesses, but attrition will happen.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I think
Krishnan, if I can just elaborate briefly. Firstly, thank you so much for sparing time for the chamber today. The risk, as you pointed out, is basically any human beings are resistant to change. Organizations are probably even more resistant to change. So that was my thing, that whenever there's a change, there is an expectation that there has to be some form of price performance benefit to implement that change within one's organization. You spoke from sort of a producer's or seller's perspective, and I was looking at, from, as you said very rightly, from the buyer's perspective. That is why, because we are facing a similar issue. That's why I wanted to go a little bit in depth on that. That was
So what aspect of I hope it is Devesh talking, right? Hi, Devesh.
I thought my voice is quite distinct. Thanks. What I meant, sir, is exactly what you see. What happens is that now I'm a customer of Tegotech. I'm buying an X particular product. It may be an older generation product, but I'm getting a certain, sort of life. I'm getting a certain price performance ratio. Now you come to me with a new product. The standard expectation is for me to undergo that change, to do the trials, to do all that. I should have some tangible benefit.
Right. I agree with you.
The new technology is going to have to not just give you benefit in terms of your realization of production capacity, but it has to result in an equal benefit to the buyer in order for them to accept it.
Otherwise, buyer will not buy it, isn't it, Devesh?
To somebody else, and then you have got capacity.
Right. So what happens, Devesh? Let me just say that. For example, now I'm a car manufacturer.
Yeah.
I'm raising the car. Let's say that if my cars were earlier running a technology, which is, let's say that optimum speed was 80, and then now let us say that I'm raising it to 100. Consequently, my car is costing more than the 80 car. Now, I'm fully aware that there are people who may not really need their car to run at 100. So I'm going to lose possibly this customer segment. For example, if I now come out with a product tomorrow and then say that this product needs to run at 500 meters cutting speed, I am fully conscious of the fact that there are customers who do not have capital equipment to run this at the 500 meters. Consequently, they will only run at the existing 300 meters, and then they may not be able to get the full benefit of this product. Hence, the economics will not be in their favor.
Right.
This is my risk mitigation plan, that I need to factor certain amount of attrition while taking this decision. Yes, this segment, the new product may not address it fully. Maybe this would probably get unaddressed and it may not be with us anymore. This is the realization. Any upgradation, any company will have to do that. But we need to all the time do that to not to shock the customer and market, but find in a way that this is palatable broadly to both buyer and seller.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sir, I think the insight is very good and on a practical platform. I think for this paucity of time, I think we should definitely take these discussions forward with Mr. Krishnan later. In fact, Mr. Krishnan has been very kind enough to accept our invitation. Sir, today your message has been a very timely message to the industries, because just we are, battling with the exit of wave 2 and a lot of uncertainties about wave 3. But I think your message on risk management, mitigation, and the leadership call, and the ability to flex and adapt ourselves to the changing trends. And of course, you touched upon some of the product strategies for win-win situation. Sir, it's been a pleasure listening to you. And every time we listen to you, we are able to get some new thoughts, and always you inspire us. Sir, once again, on behalf of Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce and my own friends, I would sincerely thank you for sharing your message, and your support to our Bangalore Chambers has been invaluable, sir. Whenever we have requested you, you have been kind enough to accept our invitation, and we look forward to your continued support to BCIC.
Thank you, Mr. Parshuraman, for your kind words, and wonderful to have spend some time with all of you. Hope it's useful, and looking forward to connecting with all of you. Thank you very much.
Sir,
Thank you,
one
BCIC.
small these things are some small felicitations from our chambers. I hand it over to Prithvi.
Thank you, President sir. Thank you, Krishnan sir, for the wonderful presentation you made. As a token of appreciation from the chamber and the office bearers, we would like to felicitate with you with a virtual memento, and after which we'll have the national anthem also played. Purushottam, can we have the?
We will reach this moment to your office, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. In fact, your today's session has been a very symbolic and historic session. This is the 190th session, 190 of the Bangalore Chambers, and we will remember this for a long time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Let's
Thank
have
you.
a national anthem played, sir. President
Yeah.
sir.
Yes, please.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मन नायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 जय
Thank you all. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you all, sir. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.